Welcome into the Irish Squad Show. I'm Joe George, post-game host, and, well, it's official. Lincoln Riley and USC, they're scared of Notre Dame.
Hi, Reggie Brooks, 1992 All-American. And I got to say, for a program that's considered obsolete and irrelevant, they're still talking about Notre Dame. I wonder why.
And I'm Allison Hayes. I've been covering the Irish for more than 20 years. And after watching the first round of the CFP with that Miami-Texas A&M game, it just solidified that Notre Dame deserved to be in there.
Hi, I'm Alan Pinkett, two-time All-American. And as far as I'm concerned, the only good Trojan, I can't say it.
Play like a champion today. It's the Fighting Irish Squad Show. Everything Notre Dame Fighting Irish every week. Breaking down the biggest news and game-changing plays the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Wake up the echoes. The Fighting Irish Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Irish Squad Show here on the Locked On Irish YouTube and audio channels. Joe George, Reggie Brooks, Alan Pinkett, and Allison Hayes here with you to talk all things Notre Dame. We'll be here throughout the entire offseason. Next week, we'll take more of a look at the transfer portal, but this week, we got a lot of news to discuss as well because USC Notre Dame is done for at least the next 2 years, maybe more, but for at least the next 2 years. But if you want a BYU in the Pop-Tart Bowl, you got them on the regular season schedule instead. We'll see. We'll talk about the NFL draft and that Love and Price are headed to it, and we'll get our playoff reaction to what happened over the weekend as well. So, Reggie, I'm going to start with you on this one because this year, Jeremiyah Love became the single-game rushing leader against USC, passing your record in the game. And now the game's over, it appears. So what were your thoughts when you heard that news?
I don't know. It was just very disheartening. And again, and not just from a Notre Dame standpoint, but, I've heard a lot of comments from Southern Cal players that, played against, and they're just as frustrated. So I don't know how you can't come up with some way to make this rivalry continue, because when you look at it, this is the longest running intersectional rivalry in college football. And that's and I'm not going to, people will say, well, USC is scared. I mean, it takes two to tango. So there's something, both Notre Dame and USC from an administration standpoint, you got to be better. We got to do better, be better. And, we're slowly seeing the death of college football in these rivalries because the focus is all about money and not about what makes college football so great. And it's those rivalries that we're losing and these competitive opportunities to play a game that so many of us loved, and you kind of rode your horse in on those rivalries, and now they're gone, and you look back and you're like, how can this be? I just came up on my feed and Facebook a picture back in 2005, and it had some USC and Notre Dame. At Notre Dame, the Bush, you had Tim Brown, you had Marcus Allen, you had Rodney Peete, Derek Mays, Tim Brown. I mean, and I'm looking at this and it's like Charles White, and I'm like, how do these guys feel to lose something that you fought for? And Alan can speak to this. When you got ready to play USC, man, that was the game. You look forward to playing that game, regardless of records. That game mattered. No matter when it was, where it was, that game mattered. And to lose that, it just is really disheartening. It seems like you're losing. To me, you're losing college football in a lot of respects when you lose a rivalry like that.
Alan?
Well, to me, it sounds like USC made a business decision. Business decision meaning that they look at the number of potential wins and losses. They look at the conference that they're in and the new teams that they have to play and the potential path getting into the playoff. And it's tougher to get in with losses, which is what they would take when they played Notre Dame. But unfortunately, it's sad because business decisions don't involve emotion. And emotionally, this one hits me because I know that our teams weren't that good, but the thing that really stood out the most when I played was the annual game against USC. Whether it was going out to the Coliseum, which Coliseum was one of my favorite places to play in college, just because of all the history, or the USC coming to Notre Dame, and we got a chance to don the green jerseys, a couple times, just to keep up with tradition against USC. And I think of all the great players and all the great games. To me, that 2005 game sticks out to me as the very best game I ever saw at Notre Dame Stadium. I happened to be in the booth broadcasting that one on the radio because I have the face for radio. But there's just so much tradition, things that make the game special that we now have to just turn our attention to the business side of it. And will I miss playing against USC? Without a doubt, because that was the highlight of the season for me, was being able to play against them. But I guess the old saying is all good things come to an end.
Allison?
Yeah, for me, and I agree with you on that, Alan. For me, and I've been to a lot of college football games in my career. I went to the University of Florida. I was there for, some amazing Florida State games, Florida, Georgia games. I've been to so many Notre Dame games that have been amazing. But for me, that 2005 game was the best game I've ever been to. And even though Notre Dame lost it and it was painful, but to be on the field and to start to watch that crowd running out when Zibikowski thought the game was over and it wasn't. And then to the way it all unfolded, I mean, it was sickening. It was a gut punch, but it's the most memorable game of my entire life. And that's what that rivalry is all about. And so to your point, Reggie, it does hurt college football. And, college football was different. It's always been different than the NFL. And it had, so many things that made it beautiful and made it different and made it special. And the rivalry aspect is tops on the list of why college football is so great. The pageantry and the history. And you look at this Notre Dame USC history. And while BYU, and we can talk more about that in a little bit, but that's a good matchup in recent history, and it's good for their schedule maybe this coming year, but it doesn't come close to replacing what USC is and means. And like you guys said, whether you had a winning record, whether you were number one in the nation, or you had a losing record, when you played against USC, it mattered and it was important, and it was the biggest game possibly of your whole season. And it just sucks for it to be gone. It sucks as a player, as a fan, as a media member, anybody, even if you didn't really care about college football that much, you probably knew about Notre Dame and USC. There's a couple of those in the sport, and that's Michigan and Ohio State. That's Notre Dame, USC. And to have that be gone, it's heartbreaking. I was looking it up because, I wanted to look more at the history. And it says that between these two teams, they have Notre Dame leads the series all time, 53, 38, and 5. But combined, the program's 24 national titles and 15 Heisman Trophy winners and a countless number of NFL draftees. And so the level of talent that we've seen come out of this matchup, this rivalry every season, is unbeatable, unmatched by other schools, other programs. And I mean, you look at just the games that Notre Dame's had against USC the last couple of seasons even, and SC wasn't at the same level it's been at, and those games were incredible. Jeremiyah Love's career will be remembered for what he did against USC. Christian Gray, who's going to have a good day, a bad day. You never know what you're going to get out of him, but I guarantee you when he looks back on his time at Notre Dame, he's going to remember the game in California last year. You know what I mean? So that's the tough part about losing a matchup in a series like this. And, Notre Dame fans, we've all been talking about it. We've been talking about it for the last couple of seasons that this was a possibility. And so it's heartbreaking that now it's actually coming to fruition, that it's going to come to an end. And who knows? I mean, they're saying it could come back in 2030, but I've seen a ton of Notre Dame fans, a ton of former Notre Dame players talking about it. And I refreshingly saw Keyshawn Johnson, and I'm going to read a quote, and I'll paraphrase some of it, but he says, "I don't know what the F is going on with our athletic department. We got people in there that are not Trojans, that don't know anything about being a Trojan. We're not going to play Notre Dame again, possibly till 2030. That doesn't make any sense. I grew up on Notre Dame USC rivalry. Why would we cancel our biggest rivalry because we can't beat them? This program has become hard to support when we are doing this type of behavior." And I think that speaks volumes. And I like to hear that coming from the USC side as well. You know, you can say everything, I feel like everything right now with college football now is just, it's business. Oh, well, we're going to get rid of the most important rivalry in the history of our program because there's a chance we might lose to them at the end of the season, and it could hurt our chances for the CFP. Okay, well, I guess we can't argue with that. So you don't play in bowl games because whatever reasons, you don't want to play big games at the beginning of the season to start the season out because no one wants to schedule Notre Dame. Now they don't want to play them at the end of the season. The CFP, the NCAA has put college football in this position, and it's all about the money and it's all about business. And it feels like it's lost everything that college football has supposed to have been about.
Yeah, I think it's because it's not just this game, right? We went 11 years without Texas A&M because one school went to the SEC. We're losing the Apple Cup. Like, we're losing some of these best rivalries. Like, that rivalry weekend is being diminished in a big way. And I'm going to butcher this guy's name, but I think it's Ryan Carty or Carchi is how you say it, from the LA Times. He reported that USC said they would play this game again next year, but they wanted it week 0. And it's all because of the way the college football playoff rankings played out with the Miami Notre Dame controversy, and how it all was that they basically wanted to say, hey, we have the rest of our Big Ten schedule ahead of us. Don't knock us for a loss in week 0. And it's like everyone just wants their cake and they want to eat it too. And it just doesn't work that way. So I don't like what's happening either. It's frustrating. That game, that 05 game, like that to me is like that for like me, like that's where I really fell in love with Notre Dame. Like I was 13 when that game was out. Like I remember watching that game with my dad and like, sorry guys. But like, it's like that game is like, that's what I remember. It's like those teams, the Bush Push, Samardzija, Zibikowski, like that's the Notre Dame that like I grew up loving. So the fact that this rivalry game is just dead, it sucks. And I'm friends with Sean Salisbury, who played quarterback against you, Alan, at USC. Oh, yeah. And like you're texting a little bit, and I'm just like, why is this happening? He's pissed. Like it seems like no one is happy about this. And so to Keyshawn Johnson's point, it's athletic directors. It's people in business that are just kind of ruining college football game by game. It feels like it's brutal. Now we get BYU. Now look, it would have been good this year. And like, I think it's ironic that, the team you're supposed to play in the Pop-Tart Bowl is the team you're now going to play for the next 2 years in a home and home. Next year you go to Provo. That might be on my bucket list game because it looks like an incredible environment. So
understand this: when you go to Provo, everything shuts down at 9:00.
I know. So it's like, everything shuts down early.
Good luck getting a drink too.
Yeah, no, I know. I probably won't sneak it in either. I don't want to get in too much trouble. But Alan, what was your, when you heard that it's BYU that's coming onto the schedule, your immediate reaction to that is what?
Well, I think it's a comparable opponent, a very good opponent, actually. And wanted to, sort of give it the title, the Holy War, but I thought that was Notre Dame Boston College. Is that correct or incorrect? Yeah. But I think we could deem it a Holy War if we wanted to. But, I think BYU is an excellent team. Notre Dame has played BYU before. In fact, I went out to Provo to do a game. If you like, 55 degrees in August, then Provo is the place to be, but it's a good football team. And we can, again, I guess, start to build some memories about playing BYU, but it's going to be one of those opponents as long as, what's that coach's name? Sataki. As long as Sataki is there, he's going to run a good program. and it's definitely a game that if you win, builds your resume. But I'm up for it. I think it's going to be a great matchup, and it'll be wonderful football to watch. And can't wait for them to come to Notre Dame Stadium and hear all that noise.
Reggie, what are your thoughts?
I played against BYU at Notre Dame. I'm sorry, this does not replace USC. I mean, I 100% agree, Alan. Great program. They're on the upswing. But how long is that going to last? Will it last? Especially in this day and age of NIL. And, there's some different rules at BYU that, can cost guys, which it cost them their quarterback at one point. So, I don't know if they had the sustainability, from a program standpoint. And you talked about the coach. How long will he be there? People, you have success that usually leads to somebody coming and taking them. And, and again, I'm not saying we're not stuck, but we'd have a Big 12 team. And let's be honest, you go from a Big 10 team to a Big 12 team. That, regardless of what the team's ranking is, or that's a knock. If you're not consistently playing SEC teams and Big 10 teams, you're going to get looked at sideways. And that hurts Notre Dame in the grand scheme of things, at least in my opinion. You lose a traditional rivalry, which, again, that's one of the things they talked about with Alabama when they played Auburn, and Auburn almost beat them. They the committee made a point of bringing up, hey, that was a rivalry game. So they look at these things, and, what other rivalry games does Notre Dame have on the schedule now?
I guess Miami now, Boston College, that's it.
Purdue.
So I mean, you're losing. Notre Dame is losing points. Again, not that BYU is not a good team. There was a reason they were in the playoffs. Darn good team, but at the same time, they're not going to be the same team next year, and they're going to get and Notre Dame could get dinged for that. And, if you don't play well, and we also got to talk about, our struggles early in the season. We do a great job in, end of September, October, November, but we struggle in early part of September. That has to be corrected. And as you can see, if Notre Dame has any falter or any mistake, they're going to get cut out. And they talk about you got 12, the top 12, and you're automatically in. How quickly can they say, well, we don't think Notre Dame is top 12? They make those decisions and come in and, you're 13 or 14. So I just don't like, I don't think it strengthens the schedule just because of where, USC was. And that's, a great rivalry and a part of the Big Ten, because you look at how many teams at the, which it was good for them, but two. Big 12 got two in, if I'm correct.
No, that's one because BYU didn't make it.
BYU. So yeah, and they get beat by the same team and drop because they got their guts kicked. Yeah. Alabama gets the brakes beat off them by Georgia. They didn't drop a spot. So what does that tell you? That Big 12, do you matter? Not so much. ACC, do you matter? Not so much. Right now, we're looking at a two-conference, league, for all intents and purposes. And until they, kind of can shore that up, this is bad. This is not. Good for BYU because again, it's going to, people are going to go to Provo. Notre Dame is going to travel. But to what level does this benefit Notre Dame in the grand scheme of things? Yeah, they're a good team this year, and apparently they didn't have they weren't that good because they didn't make it because they lose to a very good Texas Tech team, and they're out. They had two losses just like us. but their losses were against what, number 4 team in the country? So I don't know. I just don't see this as strengthening Notre Dame's schedule at all, because you're looking at a completely different team from a conference that has faltered, for lack of a better term. And the committee does not, all things are not equal. The conferences that they hold in high regard are the Big Ten and the SEC. Everybody else is fighting for scraps.
Allison?
I think it provides an interesting matchup. I don't think it's not an even trade-off in the overall scheme of what USC represents in the history of Notre Dame and for college football. But in the immediate, which it's just a 2-season deal, so it's just 2026, 2027. We don't know how good BYU will be next year, but they're coming off right now. They're 11-2. Their only 2 losses are to Texas Tech, who is considered to be one of the best teams in the country. And they did get the brakes beat off of them, as you like to say, Reggie, but that is their only losses. They've got their quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, coming back, who is a true freshman this year. So I don't know their entire roster and how many other guys are going to be returning, but at least they've got that key piece to their puzzle. And Bachmeier, I mean, he was a heck of a quarterback as a true freshman. Some numbers for you. He completed 224 of his 349 passes for 2,708 yards and 14 touchdowns. He had 6 interceptions on the season. He averaged 208 yards per game passing, and his efficiency rating was 139.2. And he's also capable of running the ball. He carried the ball for 527 yards and had 11 rushing touchdowns on the season. BYU they were in one of those positions like Notre Dame. They kind of got screwed this season also. And we can talk about what we saw from the first weekend of the CFP and all of that. But I just think you're trading of the schedule that Notre Dame already has for next season that is already not strong. And the best games on that schedule included a USC who was potentially going to have, be in the top 25. Well, now you're just trading that game off and replacing it with BYU, which could potentially be in the top 25. So in terms of strength of schedule, it's probably a wash. BYU could end up being ranked higher than SC at the time that they play, depending on when they play. So that part of it, I think it's good. I think it'll be an intriguing matchup. It'll be interesting. I love the idea of going to Provo and having it be a home and home instead of being at a neutral site. Although I was there in Vegas for that game in 2022, and man, that was awesome. And I would love for Notre Dame to go back to Vegas and play more games there, because that was a lot of fun and a great weekend. But in terms of, I think, again, for college football, I love home and home series. I love the opportunity to get to, as a fan, as a media member, and for your team to be able to play in some of these amazing stadiums that college football, has across the country. And Provo and BYU will be a really great fan experience, I think, for Notre Dame in that side of it. So I'm looking forward to it. I would have liked to have seen these two teams play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I know I'm in the minority when it comes to that, but I was disappointed, as I've said, that Notre Dame opted out. Again, I get it. I understand why they did it, but now it'll be nice to get to see these two teams go at it at full strength. You're going to have, essentially whenever they play, you would hope that you'll have, all of your guys that are going to be there, they're going to be ready to go, and it's going to make for a really good matchup. But historically, absolutely not. It doesn't replace the significance of an SC on your schedule. It doesn't even come close. Notre Dame does own the series. They're 7-2 all time against BYU, which again, I think that's part of the it's just that part of it's not exciting, but BYU has been better in recent years, so that makes it more interesting. But Reggie, you actually played against BYU. Was it 1992, which was the first time Notre Dame had ever played against the Cougars, and you had a pretty good game. You rushed for over 100 yards. I feel like that's kind of that's your MO. Every time we bring up one of these historical games, it's and Reggie had a really great game against that team. What was it like playing against BYU, and what do you remember from that game?
I remember it was kind of chilly though, but the biggest thing I remember is again, they were usually pretty big. Again, they usually had some big guys that were pretty physical, but I just, there was no fear. And again, I had a good game because I had a great offensive line. We dominated the line of scrimmage, and it was just another game. And that's why I was saying, like with SC, I was sick as a dog before the game even started. I was not even supposed to play, and Coach Holtz came in. It was like, no way in hell I'm missing this game. I'm throwing up, whatever, that's fine, but I am not missing this game. Now if I was in the same situation at the BYU game, it's like, hey, Jerome, Lee, rest of those guys, they'll feel it just fine and take care of that. But USC, again, it's just a different dynamic that comes into play, and that's why, again, for me, it's such a visceral reaction that I have to losing this rivalry. It hurts. It hurts because, again, there was a lot that went into it, and you see, you talk about the rivalry, the matchups between Notre Dame and BYU. It's not even in the 20s. It's a handful of games where you got tradition and just the connectedness. And I remember, like I said, guys, you go on to play in the league, and Alan can speak to this. You still talk about it. You still talk about those teams, like I said, the Notre Dame players and USC players, you playing on the same team. There's still some John going on, especially when they're going to play the Saturday before a Sunday night, a Sunday game. You're looking for the USC guys so you can talk noise to them. So, I mean, and it's just, these things are just, is like Alan said, I'm getting in my feelings. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm in my feelings about this because this just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I used to talk so much noise to Bruce Matthews, who's, I guess, a Hall of Famer. His sons are playing now, but all week long during USC week, I used to just be on him like stink on what. I just talked more, and that's the time when we were beating them. Yeah, I had to shut up when USC started winning, but that's the fun part about having a USC guy on your team, just talking all that noise. And Bruce, he's probably more of a Christian. He wouldn't say anything bad about Notre Dame to me, so I was probably being the devil. But one more thing about BYU, if they haven't changed, when you play BYU, you playing some grown ass men because they have a missionary component where you playing 25-year-olds that are out there. They
go on mission.
They're also
they went on a mission for a couple years, and wherever they went on a mission, they made sure there was a weight room in there. Damn it! So when they got back, you playing against but I look at that as that's great preparation for the pros because there's a difference between young kid strength and grown man strength that you have to contend with.
Go ahead, Allison.
Just to kind of put a bow on it, on this topic of conversation, for me, so, growing up in this area, I grew up right on the state line. So for me, I grew up with half of my friends were either Notre Dame fans or Michigan fans. And so the two biggest games of the entire season were Notre Dame and Michigan, and then Notre Dame and USC. And both of those rivalries, both of those historical matchups are gone. And so that part of it is devastating and disappointing for me. And I have children now, and we live still in this area, and it's the same way, but they won't have the same memories and same feelings about this historical rivalry because they don't get to see it with their own eyes. You talked about it, Joe. You remember watching that game with your dad. And I feel like my kids are being robbed of that. And I'm sure a lot of fans feel like that because they don't get the opportunity to watch that and appreciate it and pass it down. Joe, you would want to pass that down to your children and Reggie and Alan, to be able to experience that with your own family. And now we're missing out on that. So hopefully these guys can figure it out and get it back on the schedule. 2030 luckily isn't too far away, but come on, let's make some changes and figure out how to get it back on the schedule.
Yeah, last thing I'll just throw in here too is BYU. I mean, they're good this year, and they're throwing some change around. You know, they've got the player who's going to be the number one pick. It feels like in the NBA draft this year, they gave him $7 million to come to BYU to be part of their basketball team. They saved their coach from going to Penn State. Crumble Cookie stepped in, the billionaire owner, and saved that deal. So like they got money, so like they're going to have a good roster. It'll be interesting. And yeah, Allison, to your point, I don't know if I'll be sitting Joseph down and saying, "Hey, Notre Dame Rice week 2 next year." That's the game we got to be watching, even since we live here in Houston, Texas. So, all right, we'll take a break. Let's talk about Jeremiyah Love, Jadarian Price, both officially declaring for the NFL draft. We'll hit to that next year on the Irish Squad Show. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. We're just talking about the games, and that's why Gametime, it's the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets experiences in just a few taps. Actually getting tickets, that can be the hardest part, the most frustrating part, with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. I pulled up the Gametime app because I was curious, what does it look like right now, week 1 of the season, Notre Dame facing Wisconsin at Lambeau Field? The price, it's a little pricey, but you can see everything right in front of you. You can see the seat views of where you'd be sitting at Lambeau Field. So definitely might be one to be taking a look at already as the season will be back before we do it. They also have their zone deals that stands out. You pick the section, Gametime picks a seat, and you can save even more. Knowing the price includes all fees up front, making the whole process stress-free. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. All right, so one quick little bow to wrap on that. This game, the BYU game, will likely be in October. It could be in November. The schedule is pretty set so far early in the season. Again, you open up with Wisconsin at Lambeau Field. That's followed up with Rice, Michigan State, Purdue. Then October 3rd, you take on Bill Belichick and Bobby Petrino now, as he has been hired as the offensive coordinator at North Carolina. And then Navy. And that's basically – and the Navy game's October 31st, Halloween night, that one next year. But everything else is pretty much TBD besides the Miami game. So this looks like it'll be somewhere in October and November. But the news that we discussed this our last show, it felt inevitable that, Love and Price are going to declare for the draft. But now that it's happened, Allison, your reaction to it and where you feel like this backfield kind of goes from here.
Well, we knew it was coming. I mean, I felt that way even when the season was starting, that this was going to be our last chance to see Jadarian Price and Jeremiyah Love together on the field, and both in Irish uniforms. I really did think that Jadarian was going to leave at the end of this season as well. And you don't blame him. I mean, he is considered by some mock drafts as the number 2 overall running back in this year's draft, behind only Jeremiyah Love. So Notre Dame has the opportunity now to have 2 running backs taken in the first 2 days of the draft. They think Jadarian could be as high as a 2nd round, but at the very least a 3rd round draft pick. So, and I think you're going to get a really quality back with Jadarian, and some people think he might even have an even better NFL career than Jeremiyah Love. We'll see, but you do get someone with a lot of speed, someone who has the ability to return kicks as well. That's kind of where I'm concerned. I'm not concerned about Aeneas Williams one bit. I love him. I think he's great. I think he's going to pick up where these guys left off. Who's going to be his complementary back? That's a question mark. But who's also going to fill that void in the kick return game for the Irish? That's where I would like to see how they replace Jadarian there.
Reggie?
Well, I mean, again, it's no surprise. I mean, you got 2 dynamic backs, and the one thing that you have with Jadarian is the special teams. That's going to elevate his stock. And again, the more versatile you are at that next level, the better. And definitely a strong blocker, good out the backfield and pass. He's good in the pass protection. He's also good in running, getting out option routes and coming out the backfield, catching the football. So he brings a lot to the table. So, I mean, this is not a surprise. I mean, the kid has his degree. You know, he's – and now I've had the opportunity – you know, I would have loved to have him come back, you know, and maybe that was just kind of me wishing it up on him to say, hey, come on back here. You're going to be the guy. But I also understand the importance of, you know, getting to this level. This is next level is the goal. It's the dream. And, you know, to have him have the opportunity to live out his dream and be successful, you know, 100% look forward to seeing him be successful. But I still stand by what I said about, you know, when you make that next step, it's different because the pros are not the same as, you know, college. I mean, it's getting there, unfortunately, but we talk about what makes college special. Part of that is the connectedness you have with your teammates because you're there and that brotherhood that you have. You don't have that. I mean, that's very, very rare to have it on that scale at the pro level. And, you know, I think just watching the two of them and how they built such a strong relationship is been a joy to watch and a joy to watch both of them play. So you know, happy for them, wish them the best, but just hope they maintain that relationship that they have of supporting each other, rooting for each other. I remember, you know, rookie year we go play the Rams out in LA when Jerome was out there, and you know, wind up losing, and we were both pretty crappy teams. But it was so good to see him and see him succeeding. And, you know, I was doing well, but it was more than just on the field that mattered. And, you know, I think that's something that, you know, I think these two young men will, you know, hopefully hold on to for decades to come.
So technology is a wonderful thing when it works. So I didn't hear a word you said, Allison, so I hope I don't repeat anything, but I know what the topic is, but I can speak on this. Every kid always dreams of playing in the NFL. I know that when I was 7 years old, I said what I want to be is a professional football player. And from that day, I started planning to become a professional football player, you know, as far as, well, I probably should start playing football. So I played organized football. Then you started lifting weights and then realized if I was going to play professional football, I had to go to college first. So started hitting the books, made sure I had that in order. And so the reason I say all that is because these guys, even though they have eligibility left, it's still a dream to be able to play in the NFL because the main thing and I can say it's not about the money, although the money's important. Money is very, very important, but the ability to play against the best competition week in and week out. If that doesn't fire your ass up, then, you know, I don't know. Maybe you need to go have 10 or 12 babies with somebody, because I mean, that's a joyous occasion too. But for me, it was always the being able to say that you played against the best competition. That to me was the thing that separated NFL from college, because college is school spirit and, you know, a lot of pageantry. But in the NFL, it's business, damn it. And you know, you are playing against the best. And I respect the decision by both, you know, both players to make this move right now, because if they stay, folks are going to start trying to find something wrong with their game. Their stock will never be as high as it is now. And so to me, that's striking when the iron is hot. And I know that both have probably consulted with the right people, because and that's something you should do. What's my saying? You don't leave early to go late, which means you don't leave school early to get drafted in the 5th round. So if you're going to leave, you want to be, you primarily want to be first round, but nowadays you want to be in the first 3 rounds. In fact, Reggie, you'll get a kick out of this because I know what I made as a 3rd rounder, and I know my old teammate Ray Carter, his nephew played for Duke and got drafted by Buffalo right around the same round and same number as me. And you want me to tell you how much more he made?
Probably another
in
zero in there.
There might be 2 more zeros in there.
He signed a, I guess, $3.5 million contract. And I was 3rd round, 61st player taken, and I was nowhere near that. But again, the money is nice, and they're really the only other thing left to accomplish in college is that national championship, and I know that they would play a very integral role in helping Notre Dame achieve that. But right now, their best bet is to make that jump to the NFL because their stock is never going to be as high as it is now.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see where Price ends up, whether it's a 2nd round pick or big combine numbers. Back into the 1st round with that, get that 5th-year option on there. I've been looking at a couple of mock drafts. I've just been curious, and the way it's playing out right now, I feel like Jeremiyah Love is going to have a chance to get really lucky with the way this NFL season's playing out. I saw one from Field Yates, and I almost wanted to vomit because I never want to root for the Chiefs. But they had Jeremiyah Love mocked to the Chiefs in the 1st round, and I was like, oh boy. I saw one where they're like, Derrick Henry's a free agent coming up here soon. Maybe he'll get drafted by the Baltimore Ravens going next year. I'm like, man, he could end up with Jaden Daniels in Washington. There's a lot of interesting options for him. So I'm fascinated. To me, it's the Notre Dame story of the draft. It's just where those guys go 1, 2, and if Price can find his way into the 1st round, I think he is, to what Allison's point was, with these new kickoff rules in the NFL, it's back. They've rejuvenated that part of the game. So he's going to be a weapon for teams. It's going to be, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. Allison?
Just to kind of add to that, and we can definitely talk more about this next week as we get more into the transfer portal and how that affects Notre Dame and college football. But to my point, which you wouldn't have heard, Alan, was that I said I do feel like Notre Dame's run game is in capable hands in Aeneas Williams, but who is going to be his number 2, who's going to be the complementary back there? Jabron Payne, in theory, would have been that guy, and he has entered the transfer portal, which I think that's interesting. You would assume, just by who's left in the room, that Jabron, it would have been his turn or his time to at least have the opportunity to step up and be the complimentary back with Aeneas. So I would love to find out more about his reasoning for wanting to leave. But who does that then leave? Nolan James Jr. is in there. And then do you think Notre Dame could be going to that transfer portal to try to pick someone up maybe in the meantime?
Kendron Young.
There you go, the young guy.
Because I'm really intrigued by him because of his size, and he reminds me of a little bit of the big back. Because Jerome was kind of like a big back, but more recently, and I'm blanking on the kid's name, and from that standpoint. But when you look at that ability to kind of complement, I always thought he was going to be the guy that, with Aeneas being, like I said, an explosive back that can move, get in and out. Watching him and Kendron Young is going to be great to see, a power back. But Audric Estime, he kind of reminds me of him, but I believe he's faster from all that I've heard about him. But hopefully he comes back from injury. I'm going to be really interested to see how things go with him during this spring and how much he gets back into the swing of things, and getting him I just want to see the kid play, because I've heard a lot of great things about him. But I think, again, having someone, you talk about that compliment, I think he would complement Aeneas quite well. because Aeneas more of a speed to power, receiving back, third down back, Kendrick Young power back and just kind of pounding up in there. I think those two would, kind of play off of each other really well.
Yeah, not getting to see him yet, missing the season with a knee injury. You'll see how he comes back from the injury. But yeah, that's exciting to at least know that he's back there. And Nolan James, he's going to be there too, and he's going to be pushing Kedron. So it'll be cool to see how those shake out.
All right, let's take our last break here. Let's get our reactions to what we saw over the weekend. Are you validated, more frustrated? Is it almost good that Miami won? In a way, we'll get to all of that next year on the Irish Squad Show.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place live bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Their live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up, and you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
All right, so we got the first round of the college football playoff is out of the way. We are on to the next round, and this would have been where Notre Dame would have played their first game. And it was interesting because you see two non-power 4 teams. I mean, JMU scored a lot, but I feel like it was late. And Miami was kind of an atrocious football game, frankly. It wasn't like an old school defensive slugfest. It was some good defense, a lot of bad quarterback play. So, Allison, how'd you just feel watching the games play out this weekend? Were you more mad, happy Miami won anyway? How'd you feel?
No, I was not happy to see Miami win. If anything, it made me more frustrated because watching the two teams that Notre Dame lost to, that is the reason why Notre Dame wasn't in the CFP to begin with. And to watch them play that poorly against each other. Yes, it was two good defenses going up against each other. But what stood out to me the most was when you look at that, and it's going to be those two good defenses, that's where I think Notre Dame would have had the advantage because Notre Dame's offense was just that much better than I think both of those teams were. And I think Notre Dame could have beaten either one of them if they had the opportunity to have a rematch against them. And so it was just, it was so boring. It was so sloppy at times. And yes, there were some good defensive moments. Miami, Bain, man, he is very good. That guy, you got to give him his props. I think he had 3 sacks just in the first half alone, but that part of it was disappointing because Notre Dame didn't get that opportunity to be able to play, and I really honestly in my gut feel like they could have beaten either one of those two teams. And I was texting you guys in the group chat as we were watching the later games. And, I've always been a fan of the NCAA men's basketball tournament of, seeing the Cinderella team and the small school kind of come out of nowhere and have this magical moment. And it would be great if that type of thing could happen in college football as well. And there's never really been the opportunity for those guys to be able to do that. But I think what we're seeing is that there's a reason why we've not seen that. And we're not going to see that because as college football continues to go in the direction that it's going and money and everything, and these teams are just, so stacked and they're loaded, the smaller schools like a JMU and a Tulane, they might have incredible seasons in their small leagues in their conferences, but they just don't match up. They are not seeing the level of talent. They're not seeing the size that they are seeing when they're going up against an Ole Miss or an Oregon, or if they were to play any of the other teams in the top 12. And everybody's been talking about it, but Nick Saban really nailed it on the head when he did the comparison of you wouldn't have a AAA team because they won their championship come and play in the World Series. It's just night and day. It's just two different levels. It's two different leagues, literally. And I think that's what we saw this weekend with those games being played. They were just completely outmatched. As great as their seasons were, championship winning seasons for those two teams, they just could not match up against the big boys. And so that was disappointing too. And I think but it's another learning moment. The CFP is still figuring itself out, I guess. And you unfortunately need those types of things to happen so that they can see their mistakes and they can see where they can get better and how it can change and evolve, because we're going to continue to see the CFP evolve over the next couple of seasons until they figure it out. Who knows if they'll ever get it quite figured out. But I mean, there's just no way you could possibly say, and then people that are Notre Dame haters say, oh, they're just crying about this and that. But there's just no way that you could say Notre Dame did not belong in that top 12. I don't think anybody, I mean, even people who hate Notre Dame agreed Notre Dame was one of the top 12 best teams in the country, and they deserve to be there. The Alabama one was a little frustrating. I didn't like to see Alabama win like that, because I felt like, that was really when it came down to it. It wasn't so much that Miami got in and Notre Dame didn't. I think it was more that Alabama got in. Alabama didn't move, and they did move BYU. We've talked about that ad nauseum, but I was frustrated to see Alabama win and play the way that they did. But then it was like, man, if Notre Dame could have played against Oklahoma, I think that was a matchup Notre Dame could have won as well. So all the way around, it was just salt in the wound. And every person, most people I knew didn't even want to watch this past weekend. They don't want to watch the games because they're so sickened that Notre Dame isn't in.
Alan?
Well, I guess the only game that was a teeny bit impressive was the Alabama-Oklahoma game. And I got a neighbor who's 2 doors down from me. He's been flying his Alabama flag for like the last 3 weeks. I want to go down and egg his house so bad, but he's a good dude, and I like him and everything. And, we've traded barbs back and forth, friendly barbs. And I know his team is Alabama, but I didn't know his ass had a flag. And so I was talking to another neighbor a couple of houses down, telling them the same thing, that I hope he has a ring, because he's going to see me egging his house. But I'm not going to do that. But I was impressed by what Alabama did, because at the end of the day, I don't think Alabama deserved to be in there. But that was the SEC play, the SEC political part of it. But good for them. They went and won the game. I really had trepidation about watching Miami, Texas A&M, and pretty much watched it more because I wanted to see, all the people there in College Station, how the stadium would react to everything. And yeah, it was a great environment. And it is one of those where you can't hear yourself think. And having lived in Houston for 23 years and dealt with those Aggies, I know how
they're a lot
spirited they were. But they got what they were supposed to get, is a butt whooping, because living around Texas A&M people is hard. Oh my God, it's hard. You think living around Texas, and you're down in Houston, so I mean the town is split. But the Aggies, you're forever an Aggie. You're a former student. You're never a former Aggie. I know you've heard that mess down there,
yep.
Joe. But the Tulane Ole Miss game, once I heard it was on TNT, it was already devalued to me. It's like, I ain't watching that mess.
Yeah.
I don't even know what channel that is. So I actually had to speak it into my Xfinity remote to find it. And then when I got there and saw the scores, like, I ain't watching this mess. And then I did not watch at all the JMU Oregon game. And it's a shame, because I'm a fan of JMU. I grew up in Northern Virginia, and very fond of JMU, because when I was in high school, we used to run all our track meets at JMU. And it's in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And we played in football. We played Harrisonburg a couple times right there. So was fond of JMU, but it's like, I'm not wasting my time watching them play Oregon, because Allison, you said it best. It's just a totally different level. They don't have the resources. They don't have the players. They don't have the talent. They did good with what they had, and God bless them, because they played their butts off. But this is, and Nick Saban did speak some truth. I remember hearing him say that, and I'm like, well, the only thing I'm left with is knowing that the 12 best teams aren't playing. It's just simple as that.
Reggie?
Well, it is what it is. I was really pissed off about the Alabama-Oklahoma game. You're up 17, and you just clapped. Did y'all see the punt that wasn't?
Yep.
I could see if, he bobbled it.
He
literally dropped the punt. Nobody was necessarily rushing. He just dropped the ball. How do you do that? You've been playing this game as a punter. Come on. And then that material to throw to the outside, that was a pick six. What are you looking at? What in the hell are you looking at? And again, I wanted Oklahoma to win because for two reasons. Home state, grew up Oklahoma fan, but also one of their assistant GMs is a teammate of mine, Lake Dawson. So was really hoping that, and it started off great. I'm like, because again, Alabama's offense is still not that great. I'm sorry, and neither is Oklahoma's for that matter. Because Mateer, he started off great, but then he was having struggles early on. When that first game, when they beat Alabama, and it just seems like they just swapped horrible play one game to the next, and that was the first thing that was just disheartening, and then to just see the and A&M in Miami, what was that?
It's two bad quarterbacks.
What I mean, that was. Like I said, Joe, that was bad football. Again, will not disrespect the defenses. They had two great defenses, but they weren't that great. I'm sorry. They're not that great. That was just some bad play. And how do you rush for over 170 yards and only come up with 10 points? Until I actually saw the numbers of the running back, Fletcher, I'm like, he was averaging 10 yards a carry. And you only scored 10 points? Come on, man. That's not good. That's not good football. And I'm not gonna go into the JMU, Oregon, Tulane, Ole Miss. I mean, we all know. Because there's a reason why their coaches are not going to be there next year.
Exactly.
You don't go, and have success at Oregon to go be the head coach of JMU. You don't have success at, Wisconsin to go be head coach of Tulane. You leave those smaller programs and you progress. Similar like the portal. I mean, the players that are at those schools, because Cignetti, he pretty much took half the team from JMU to IU. He's like, hey, I coach these guys up. And again, I think there's a way to do it. And to your point, Allison, I mean, basketball, yes, because you have fewer players, and if you get one or two star guys, you can make a run.
One.
But in college football, no, it's the size difference, the speed, just the athleticism, it's too great of a thing. And you have to have everybody working in concert for it to have success. Because football requires 11 guys to work as one. In basketball, you can have one guy that just goes off and just does his thing, whether it's shooting, go down. You don't need all five guys to work in unison necessarily. But in football, you have a guy miss a block, you have a guy miss, a coverage, you miss a gap, hit the wrong gap, boom, it's out the gate. So it's just, and nothing against those smaller schools. I mean, hey, they went out and had a great season, but to put. I mean, how did that benefit JMU outside other than getting some money and Tulane? Did that benefit either of those schools in terms of how they look?
No, I want to go to Tulane so I can get my butt whooped by a big boy. You know,
I mean for kids that want to, hey, that just the dream of it, the possibility, they don't want to see that. Because again, when you go to recruit, you put the film on. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah. Hey, and Allison,
Oregon did not play well. I mean, they were playing bad. They were turning the ball over, giving up some plays, and it's like, and they played bad and still beat the brakes off of it. And more power to them, but it doesn't benefit those schools outside of the money to go take a beating like that. I just think it's not disrespectful, but man, that's disheartening at the very least. So I would love to see them come up with a way to say, hey, maybe do like, some play-in games and, see if, test the waters and see if they have the capacity to play at a heavyweight level. And I just felt bad for both Tulane and JMU because you just saw how overmatched it was. And I got to say this, I was just cracking up listening to the commentators trying to create some dynamics, some drama within those two games because it was just bad. It was just bad to watch, and it was painful to watch, and it was also painful to listen to the commentators try to make it sound better than what it was because it was horrible. It was horrible to see. And again, and I'm for getting the opportunity for the smaller schools, but not to the point where you're going to embarrass people.
Yeah, I think there's teams in the past that, like in the expanded playoff, would have made sense. That Boise State team that won, with the Statue of Liberty in the early 2000s, the Houston Cougars with Greg Ward, the undefeated Cincinnati UCF team, Cincinnati, honestly, when they went and beat Georgia in the bowl game. Like, so there's occasional. I think all I want for Christmas this year, guys, is on January 23rd, as they announce a 16-team playoff, and it's just 1 through 16. No auto bids, none of that. Just take the best 16 teams in the country. So if Tulane was ranked 16th, cool. They get to play the number 1 team in the country, and they're in the college football playoff. Like, I don't think we need all the politics with it. I don't think Notre Dame should be guaranteed an auto spot because it wasn't just Notre Dame. The rule in place next year, if they don't change, if people miss this, was that the ACC champion was also guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. So Duke would have made the playoffs this year under next year's format instead of James Madison with 4 or 5 losses. So I just want 1 through 16. No caveats. Just make it really nice and simple. 1 through 16 get in. And if it ends up being Tulane at 16, that's fine. And at least they lose to the number 1 team in the country. Like that's fine with me. I could live with that, guys. I could live with that.
It's going to be tough because every conference is only looking at what's good for them. Yeah. And it does not benefit the Big Ten to do 16, but it doesn't benefit the SEC to do, or I think the SEC wanted to have like 24 teams. So
that was the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's flipped.
Yeah. Big Ten, okay.
Yeah,
so let's hope on the 23rd they get to that 16.
Well, and honestly, it's not like these teams are going to read it, because the one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show was that part of the reason why USC is claiming they don't want to play this Notre Dame game is because Notre Dame was guaranteed a playoff spot. It was then reported by the same people from the LA Times that USC was made aware of this and had to sign off on it because every member of the conference had to agree to it in the Big Ten. And then now they're claiming oh, we never saw that. It's like, okay. So you just don't read the documents that are sent to you about the college football playoff?
or read it all. They're guaranteed a spot if they're ranked.
Yeah.
If they're not ranked, they're not guaranteed anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will do it for this episode of the Irish Squad Show. We'll be back next week. We'll be right before the portal opens, so we'll hit on that a lot. I think there's a certain Notre Dame quarterback that could play for a couple of these teams like Texas A&M that were in the college football playoffs. So we'll discuss that next week. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays to everyone. Thank you for watching, supporting this show, this channel, Locked On Sports. So for Allison Hayes, Reggie Brooks, for Alan Pinkett, I am Joe George. We will talk to you next week. Peace.